So she's always on Okay Good. Huge Colbert fan. I'm kind of indifferent on Colbert. I'm more of a Fallon fan.
Okay.
We've only just begun.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Love Talk, a series where we examine the dynamics of dating, marriage, and family relationships. In previous episodes, we've talked about what it takes to maintain a relationship, long-distance relationships, and dealing with breakups. Today, we are talking all about millennial dating culture. If you're new to The Conversationalist, this is not the typical video, but you have to lighten things up from time to time, and that is what the Love Talk series is for. Because I think it's all something that we're kind of fascinated with, and everybody's learning on their own, is how do you make these relationships work, whether they're romantic, familial, or platonic. Today we'll be talking to quite a sample of individuals. We have some folks who are older than 60 years old. We have people right down to early 20s, my age. We're also going to be hearing from a young woman from Indonesia who shares of her perspective on dating culture in our country. And we also have a brave young man who I approached on a dating app called Bumble, which we'll get into later. And he agreed to do this interview. I'm sure he instantly regretted it, but we got the footage. So in this conversation, we'll be highlighting some of the defining aspects of millennial dating culture and whether they're positive or negative. Also, we're going to dive into the world of online dating and dating apps. Please enjoy and check out the links to previous Love Talk videos that will be in the description of this video.
Because this is your time. This is the only time in young people's lives that they're going to have access to so many different networks of people. You're not going to have that possibility of meeting different sorts of people and figuring out what you like about people, what you don't like about people, if you're not out there meeting the different types of people.
Yeah, I don't know, because I see such a mix almost between friends and people in college who I know. It's almost like half and half, where it's like people have found the one person that they think they're going to be with already, and then the other half completely rejects that narrative, and they say, like, why would you ever want to you're so young. Yeah, you're so young. You have there's so much potential out there. You don't even know yourself. Why would you tie yourself to someone else?
Then I also start to think, if you found someone you really want to be with, like, you don't ditch a best friend because you're like, oh, I could have other best friends. Yeah, so people have that mentality about dating.
That's a great point. Yeah, and it's almost a poisonous narrative, really, in any aspect of life, which is exactly what you did.
The one biggest thing that I wish we could change, and there's no real way to do it, is just the fact that in college you're surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands, of people. So you get like this conception in your mind of like, look at all these people that I could date. So if I break up today, I could find someone else. I think that's like one of the biggest reasons that college dating just goes so poorly, is because so many people have this conception that like, hey, look at all this green grass, I can go anywhere and it'll be better.
I think one thing that I would change is just the mentality of college dating or college relationships. To me, seems like very superficial and very short term a lot of the time. And I think especially with like the hookup culture and like just wanting to have like short term flings that are just like very fun but not very serious. And obviously, like you said, we don't have to participate in that if we don't want to, but I just think that it's not a culture that does a very good job at preparing people for like healthy long marriages. Because when you're in that kind of a culture, like hookups and stuff, you're just thinking like, these people are here to serve like my pleasures and my needs, like in this very short term like scenario. And like that's not at all what like it takes to build a good marriage.
My perception, and this is my older person perception, is that people your age, there's a lot of group. You do things a lot as a group, and then you hook up. I almost said our generation. That sounds so old, but it's accurate.
Well, it is.
Our generation,
several generations previous to this.
Our generation, it was more. I mean, you did things as groups sometimes, but it was more just because you were friends, and
did actually have a group of friends that was the context within which we had so much fun.
But then we had dates where we would leave the group.
There does seem to be a greater allowance for kind of independence too, that, again, not so much that it kind of allows non-monogamy to become more prevalent as perhaps it would be otherwise, but more so along the lines that there's not the expectation that you have to be tied down to your partner all the time.
I wish it was easier or more acceptable to just ask a person out to lunch or to dinner or breakfast even. Get to know them a little bit, before and then both of you would have the ability to, see whether or not you want to go farther into this relationship. Because I feel like in the culture now, you're at 99% willing to date the person, like in a relationship, and then you go on that first date.
If we change college, just be more relaxed and just you hang out with the friends you have, and then you just focus on your studies. And then that frees up so much more time, first of all, to relax on your own, and also to actually invest time into dating someone.
Things have shifted so much since maybe 60 years ago, when there was very much an idea that you date a person and then you establish a relationship, and then maybe you have a sexual relationship, or maybe sex is safe for marriage, but you kind of date to find a mate. Mm-hmm. And now things have just flipped so much. The hookup culture dominates. Sometimes the sex comes first. And sometimes there's even this kind of unwritten rule about don't expect anything to come from this.
Do you think there are any positive aspects of the hookup culture today? Do you think any good is coming of it, or is it just kind of harming relationships as a whole?
It's a great question. I think some people talk about it as positive in some ways. So I am not interested in having any kind of serious relationship right now. I'm a student, I have too many commitments. Maybe I do just want to have sex with people for recreation and pleasure, and that's just part of what I'm interested in doing. And so for a person like that, then they talk about the hookup culture as being a positive thing. It doesn't then tie me down to someone. It doesn't increase my responsibilities to someone. Having said that, lots of people are unhappy with it, feel used, and it's so complicated again, because when do you start having conversations about what is this?
Now we're going to get into talking about how these things have complicated millennial dating culture. That's right, hands. Whether it's using your phone to meet people on dating apps or using it as a cushion on dates, you know what I mean, filling awkward situations. It's undeniable that phones have complicated millennial dating culture. With dating apps, you have the ability to meet new people that you wouldn't otherwise. But also, because the sample size can appear so big, it's easy to discard people and treat them as a commodity. But the two main ones we'll be diving into are Bumble and Tinder. Tinder is an app where a picture or several pictures and a brief description of a person pops up on your screen, and you swipe right if you like that person and swipe left if you don't. Bumble is very similar. You have the same swiping system, but it's more driven by women in that women have to make the first move. In the following segment, we're going to be hearing from several individuals from the US and a woman from Indonesia about how dating apps have worked for them or people they know. I'm really happy we could include a perspective from outside of the US, but I do want to say that this is in no way representative of the entirety of Indonesia or countries outside of the US. It's just a different perspective to include in the video. But let's get talking about how phones and dating apps have changed millennial dating culture. Do people use dating apps at all over there?
Oh, some of them, yeah. Tinder. Yeah, Tinder, I know it, and it's more like, I don't know, people kind of relate it to negative stuff. Yeah. Like, it's more like sexual and everything in the Islamic way. Yeah, we cannot date. So what we do is there's a group of Islamic youth, Islamic youth community and stuff, that they are arranging pre-marriage dates, but it's more like pre-marriage. So the guy and the girls are sending their CVs, resumes. Yeah, it's interesting. They're sending their resumes, and this community is okay, they're collecting and see which one is suitable for each other, which one match with each other, and then So the community will call those people to meet. They have to be accompanied with a person of their family.
Online dating and I think regular dating, whatever that means, there's a lot of superficiality and shallowness and just people wanting to present themselves as one thing. You have to remember, if that's not who you really are, do you want to sustain that forever? You know, probably not. So
Yeah, you're bored, you're uncomfortable, so you're phone. It's great.
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, I've only been listening to half of what you said.
Exactly. There we go.
Wait, what are we talking about?
Michael's texting right now without looking.
And I think some of these sites where you're judged primarily, oh, I'm just going to swipe. Right? You feel like you can get commodified. I feel like I'm just going to judge you basically totally on the way that you look.
Is this going to be exactly what people expect from like a random Bumble interview? Just like really creepy. Any interaction is shallow because you typically don't approach someone unless you're attracted to them. Like,
right?
You
Like I
don't,
said, like it goes back to the analogy of it's a bar. Like literally when people tell me like, why are you meeting someone on Tinder? Like, how'd you meet your girlfriend? You know, and they're like, oh, well, we were at a party, I thought she was really cute, so I like started dancing with her.
He also gets into sort of like what his steps are for meeting someone off of a dating app. And he talks about how there's like a progression. You start to text them, you get their Snapchat, and maybe even a phone call before meeting them in person.
If I know I'm gonna meet someone on Bumble, like I'll like text them for a couple of days, make sure they're normal.
Yeah.
Usually I try to get the snap because like that's how you know like
They're
they really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like make sure they're not some,
They're not
like,
catfishing you?
48-year-old dude trying to kill you.
Yeah.
So I usually go to that and then I have a couple of phone calls, but I don't think.
Do you phone call before you meet up? That's an interesting technique.
I always do. Yeah.
You always do?
I usually try to come up with not an excuse, but like, hey, I have something going on. Like I can't text. Hey, I have a drive coming up. Like, you want to like talk on the phone?
Especially as a guy, I think it's a very different experience for him when he's talking to someone on Bumble, where the woman has to initiate more, than on Tinder, where it's more expected that the guy initiates.
The people that I like talk to on Tinder are completely different than the people I talk to on Bumble because girls on Bumble, it's more than just like, I feel like at the very least, like I said with last night, like a friendship, at the very least, it's like fucking friends.
Yeah.
And I feel like on Bumble, like you have that, where on Tinder you don't.
So what do you mean? Like on Tinder, it's either like you hook up or you're not seeing each other
like,
ever
it's
again?
Like I'm hardcore looking for that relationship, or it's like I'm hardcore looking out for that hookup.
So do you think that dating, like, does it make it easier when it's like through this?
No, it makes it harder, honestly.
Really?
Because it's like,
why?
You meet someone, like you hang out with them, and it's like, okay, we're gonna like go hang out. Like you want to do this, 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 and this, or whatever. Like what? It's always hard to like figure out those intentions, if that makes sense. All right, the bio is the hardest part. So she's always okay, good. Huge Colbert fan. I'm kind of indifferent on Colbert. I'm more of a Fallon fan.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching. I will have the other videos from the Love Talk series linked in this description. And if you enjoyed this video, throw it a like or subscribe if you are so inclined. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you to all who contributed in today's video. And if you have some experiences that you want to share that are similar or different to those that we heard today about millennial dating culture, feel free to contribute those in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Don't look me up on Google. Anyway. No, don't do it.
Laura, your full name?
Oh, are you reading my Writing Center bio? Yeah. Soon. What did I just do with my hands? It's weird.
Unreal.